Hello everyone out there in Chafin land, and welcome to 5 Themes of Geography. So make sure that you have your guided notes nearby, something to write with, and we're going to get started. So the 5 Themes of Geography are not truly a standard. They are part of the themes and enduring understandings. So we need to be able to describe the 5 themes of geography, and then it has them listed there, but we'll get to those some more in a minute. So what are the 5 themes of geography? Well, the 5 themes of geography are movement, region, human-environment interaction, location, and place. And this acronym will help you to remember the 5 themes, and our acronym is Mr. Help. M is for movement, R is for region, H is for human. You're going to see that we split it up. E is for environment interaction. So while human environment interaction is one theme, we've split it into 2 things for this acronym. L is for location, and P is for place. So if you can remember Mr. Help, you should be able to remember the 5 themes. Now, what is geography? Geography is the study of the earth and everything that is in or on it. And a geographer is the one doing the studying. And they do this by asking 2 questions. Where is it located? And why is it there? Okay, so we're going to look at some of those things that geographers look at today. Now, movement. The first one in our Mr. Help, M, movement. There are 3 movement buzzwords, or 3 important parts to movement: people, goods, and ideas. Now, people is about how and why people travel from place to place. But I need you to understand that this is not travel like you traveled from your house to Target, or you traveled from school to a friend's house, or even you traveled from home to Disney World. This is more of a long-term move. So examples are, people sometimes move for a career. Maybe you've had a parent or a friend has had a parent who had to move for a job. That would be a reason. Family, to be closer to family, or depending on your family, I guess it could be to be further away from your family. Some people leave their home and move to another place long term to escape war in their country or their area. Some also do it to escape religious persecution, like the Pilgrims did when they came to North America. Goods is about how products are moved from place to place. So there are manufactured goods, things like furniture. You can't grow furniture, right? It's manufactured, it's made. Oil, and while it's true that oil is a fossil fuel and you can dig for it and get it, it needs to be refined. It needs to be made into something that can actually be used. So it's considered a manufactured good sometimes. Also, a truck delivering oranges from Florida to New York. Now that is something that you can grow. You can grow the oranges and they can be moved from one place to another. And then ideas. This is how ideas move around the world. So it says technology allows us to see ideas move. We can't literally see ideas move, but we do see that they do move around. Things like fashion that moves from one place to another, starts in one area, sometimes Paris or Milan. Music, which can start almost anywhere, right? And can get popular around the world. Philosophies, which are ways of thinking, and language. And this is not just languages, but also it could be language usage. So the way that we use words differently from place to place sometimes travels. All right, I want you to take a minute. We're going to think, pair, share. So first, take a minute to think on your own. Then I want you to share with a neighbor. And then you're going to share with the class. How did you use movement today? Think, for instance, about how you got to school. All right, so the next letter in our acronym, Mr. Help, is R for region. There are 3 region buzzwords, and they are unifying, which means similar, and we'll talk about that, land, and culture. So when we say unifying or similar in this case, a region is a place somewhere on Earth that has a unifying, a similar characteristic. So places might have a similar climate, and that would be a region that has that climate. They might have similar industry, this says, like farming. There are farming regions. In the United States, farming regions might be places like Kansas or Nebraska. There are also banking regions. Sometimes those go by a different name than regions. Sometimes they're called banking districts, but areas where a lot of banking goes on. Now, land is about the different physical regions, like deserts and mountains and grasslands and rainforests, and cities have business and residential regions. Again, those might be called more commonly districts. And then culture. In culture, people share similar customs or values. So for instance, here in the southern states where we live, we have a similar climate in most of the southern states. We eat similar foods, although there's a wide variety of foods. There are similar accents. We're used to that southern accent. And there are some common religions. Not everybody, for sure, but there are some. All right, another think, pair, share. Think on your own, then share with a neighbor, then share with the class. Got to think back to elementary school. What are the regions of Georgia? Or 1 or 2 that you can remember. Okay, so next in our Mr. Help acronym, we have human environment interaction. Remember, that would be the H and the E. And in this case, we're going to abbreviate it to HEI, human environment interaction. And HEI has 3 buzzwords as well: adapt, modify, and depend. So when we adapt, we kind of become comfortable with. It's how humans become comfortable with their environment or in their environment because they can't change it. So, for example, you carry an umbrella when it's raining because you cannot stop the rain. You have to do something, right? You have to change something to make yourself more comfortable. You might create a shelter for the climate that you live in. If it's particularly cold, you might build something to keep you warm so that you could stay in that environment. Now, modify is to change, okay? But it's not changing you. It's not the humans changing themselves. It is how humans change their environment to meet their needs. So, for instance, they might build highways to get from one place to another faster. Railroads, same kind of thing. Or irrigation systems. And this is just a way to get water from one place to another. So, in a very simple way, your sprinklers at home that you may have in your yard are irrigation systems. That gets water from wherever your hose is connected to, right? Or if it's an in-ground sprinkler, wherever it's connected to, it gets water from there and puts it around your grass or your flowers or whatever. People who are farmers use irrigation systems because maybe they can't get water as easily where they are, and they have to bring water from somewhere further away. So again, irrigation systems to help make things better, help make things grow. And then depend. This is to need. It's how humans need their environment in order to survive. So farmers grow food to eat, absolutely, but also to sell so that they can buy other things. You might need your environment. If you lived in a forest, you might need to chop down some trees to have wood to burn to keep you warm, right? So there are different ways that you can need your environment or depend on your environment. All right, let's think, pair, share again. Think on your own for just a minute. And this one's going to take some thought. And then share with a neighbor, and then share with the class. Imagine that you are stranded in the middle of the forest. How would you use HEI, human environment interaction, to adapt, modify, and depend on the environment in order to survive? And you can do one or more of those. Okay, so there's another thing to think of with human environment interaction, or HEI. It can be positive and negative. Geographers study the way that people interact positively and negatively with their environment and what the lasting effects are. Some positive things are planting trees or recycling. Some negative things would be polluting or wasting or overusing resources. So wasting or overusing, let's think about trees. That's a really easy one. If you go into a forest area and you cut down a whole bunch of trees so that you can build a town or a house or a farm, and you don't do anything with that wood, you just get rid of it. You don't care about it. You don't use it to make anything else, not to build anything, not to create furniture, not to, it's not sent to be made into paper, none of those things. If you just cut it down and leave it, then you're wasting it. But by the same token, if you're cutting down those trees and you just keep cutting things down and keep cutting things down and you don't plant anything new, then you're overusing that resource. And that could be a problem as well. Okay, we are to the L of Mr. Help, location. Now, location only has two buzzwords. They are absolute and relative. Now, absolute location means that it is an exact location. It is usually defined by lines of latitude and longitude or a street address. You know exactly where it is. I like to say absolute location means you absolutely know exactly where it is. So the latitude and longitude of London, England is what you see there. 51.5072 degrees north, 0.1275 degrees west. And the address of Lovingood Middle School is 3825 Luther Ward Road. But relative location is more about what a place is surrounded by, using directions, distance, and landmarks. So for instance, the U.S. Capitol is about 38 miles southwest of Baltimore. So we've used distance, 38 miles, southwest is direction, and Baltimore could be a landmark. It's a well-known city. But we've also said in this about, so it's not exact, it's about. Lovingood Middle School is beside Hillgrove High School. Well, that's great, but that's not an exact location. You have to know where Hillgrove High School is to know where Lovingood Middle School is, and we haven't given any exact information. All right, another think, pair, share. Think on your own. Share with a neighbor, share with the class. Can you give an example of location? And this could be absolute or relative. All right, so our last letter in Mr. Help is P for place. Now there are two place buzzwords, physical and human. So physical features, we're going to talk a lot about this year. They are things like landforms. Mountains, rivers, oceans, and deserts are all landforms. But human features can be man-made or human-made things like buildings, landmarks, people. We're going to come back to people in a minute. That's part of the human thing. So examples of buildings and landmarks would be the Empire State Building, which is absolutely a building, and the Eiffel Tower, which we could consider a building, but it's really more of a landmark. Now the people part, the human part, is culture. And that would be language, and in this case it would be like the languages that are spoken, but also food, the kinds of things that they share in their culture. But how do geographers use place? Well, geographers use this theme by looking at the characteristics that tell each location apart. And we're going to talk about the difference between location and place in just a second. So it's how you would describe a place. So for instance, if you were told to close your eyes and try to describe Atlanta or Marietta or Powder Springs? Or how do you tell Antarctica and the South Pole apart? You have to describe the characteristics that make them different. I like to say that the difference between location and place. Location is where it is. Remember, that's one of the questions that geographers ask is where is it? Where is it located? Location is where it is. Place is what is it like? What does it look like? How does it seem? How does it feel? How does it smell? What kind of sounds do you hear? What kind of characteristics does it have? Okay, that's not one of the questions geographers ask, but geographers do look at the characteristics. All right, that does it. If you have any questions, you can go back and view this video again later, or you can ask me any questions that you have to clarify information. Thank you, and I want you to remember that you are seen, you are known, you are cared for, and you are loved.